Hello, and welcome to a short box from Warhammer 40k's Grim History from the Beyond. I'm Zeckthar, and for the next few weeks we'll be covering the Siege of Medusa.
Now last time we covered the rest of the Xenos races on Medusa V, but this week we will dig into how humanity will deal with the alien, as well as their most hated enemy, Chaos. Now, the forces of Chaos were controlled by Xenos the Deceiver, the four-eyed sorcerer lord of the Black Legion, and the chosen of Abaddon the Despoiler, who was gifted with a vision by the ruinous powers of the warp. It was a glimpse of the future that might come into being through his own actions. He saw himself exalted upon a mountain of corpses, as the undiluted power of the warp writhed about him. He saw a planet scoured clean by the power of Chaos Undivided, transmuted into a demon world of the warp, with himself as its demon prince and master. Now, before we continue on, a little background on the Chosen Xenos. The Chosen of Abaddon are four powerful Chaos Lords that serve under the patronage of Abaddon the Despoiler, the War Master of Chaos, and the Master of the Black Legion of the Chaos Space Marines. Rather than a single force with a single leader, after the Horus Heresy, the Black Legion became a mighty host of many warbands and warlords. Within this host, all would swear complete allegiance to Abaddon, and through an inner circle, he would lead them with absolute dominion. These favored lieutenants became known as the Chosen of Abaddon. The Chosen were his favorite generals, standing above all others and enacting his dark will, a warped shadow of the Luna Wolves Mournival, in which he once served. Nowhere in the galaxy can a more feared and merciless collection of tyrants be found, always eager to put entire worlds to the sword in the name of chaos. The last recorded deployment of the full Officio Assassinorum execution force was against the so-called Chosen of Abaddon. These four individuals were so hated by the Imperium man that an entire team of assassins infiltrated Abaddon's flagship. This was an extraordinary event, for it is rare for even one assassin to be sent to deal with a threat. Abaddon learned of the impending attack and laid a trap for the assassins, slaying all four and protecting his Chosen. Now, the four Chosen of Abaddon are also symbols of the ruinous power they worship, and their titles and gods are the Lord Ravager, who follows Khorne, Lord Deceiver, who follows Tzeentch, the Lord Corruptor, who follows Slaanesh, and the Lord Purgator, who follows Nurgle. Now, needless to say, Xenos is the Lord Deceiver, and little is known of his history before the 13th Black Crusade. One could assume he was a librarian of the Luna Wolves before the Horus Heresy, but how he garnered such a high rank in Abaddon's legions is he gave the Despoiler the rare and thought-lost artifact, the Heart of Chaos. Xenos was not unknown to the Inquisition. During the 13th Black Crusade, which had concluded only a few weeks before the Medusa V campaign began, the Officio Assassinorum had sanctioned the deployment of an Officio Assassinorum execution force to eliminate Xenos, amongst other notable targets amongst the forces of Chaos. While scrutiny of their field records is impossible, at least 7 assassin agents were known to have failed in the attempt to take the sorcerer's blasphemous life. Following the 13th Black Crusade, Xenos was responsible for the destruction of the population of the worlds of Corallus and Galifront. Ordo Hereticus agents on the Galifront system failed to learn the lesson of what Xenos was capable of following the Corallus massacres. In almost identical circumstances to what happened on Corallus, the population of Galifront turned upon itself worshipping the dark gods of chaos in a frenzied slaughter of all life in the heavily populated star system. The Inquisition later speculated that the extermination of both Corallus and Galifront were little more than experiments in damnation, paving the way for Xenos' attempt to transform himself into a demon prince on Medusa V. Xenos commanded the powerful, repulsive class Grand Cruiser Blade of Damnation, which boasted firepower and accuracy far above other vessels of its class. The Blade of Damnation was known to have possessed by a demonic spirit, which was consistent with many infernal war engines used by Xenos' Black Legion warband of Chaos Space Marines. On Medusa V, Xenos knew what must be done if he was to realize the future the ruinous powers had promised him. The planet had to die. Atop a pillar of cadavers heaped upon the ruins of the Imperial Cathedral in the planet's capital city of Hive Eurelius, a sorcerous ritual of inconceivable power had to be enacted. At the very moment that approached the warp storm engulfing the planet, Yegethmor would be required to call upon the unlimited power of the warp. Yet for this ritual to succeed, it required millions of lives to be sacrificed to the dark gods and the glorious victory of the forces of chaos over the world's imperial defenders. To achieve his aims, Yegethmor gathered under his leadership a mighty force, a conglomeration of Chaos Space Marine warbands. Each was an army in its own right, and each was led by a Chaos Lord hungry to share in the Deceiver's glory and bathe in the approval of the ruinous powers. Thousands of Chaos Space Marines from the infamous traitor legions, including the Black Legion, Emperor's Children, the Iron Warriors, the Word Bearers, the Death Guard, and even the elusive Alpha Legion rallied to Yegethmor's cause, their numbers swollen by renegade Space Marines from the Maelstrom Warp Rift in the Eastern Fridges. Every warrior in Yegethmor's army fought to honor the Dark Gods, and to enjoy the blessings of chaos if they succeeded. For Yegethmor, the prize was the power of the warp, unleashed and in dominion over what became his demon world of Medusa V. Despite his promises to Abaddon, Yegethmor fought for more than the glory of the War Master in Chaos. Every victory brought him one step closer to demonhood. And thus, Yegethmor the Deceiver of the Black Legion had turned his baleful eye towards Medusa V. As the storms of the warp drew ever closer to Medusa V, and madness, heresy, and chaos-spawned corruption engulfed the world below, great heroes were needed to stand against the dark will of the ruinous powers. The horrors unleashed by Yegethmor during the terrible battles of Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade were well remembered, and if the Deceiver's plan for Medusa V came to fruition, the Imperium would doubtlessly suffer for it. So it was that legendary Space Marine chapters, such as the Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Imperial Fist, Howling Griffins, Black Templar, and the Space Wolves answered Medusa V's desperate plea for aid with entire companies, and several other chapters dispatched what units they could spare from other duties. Before long, a sizable force of Astartes was a symbol of Medusa V, and Captain Cato Sicarius of the Ultramarines, hero of the Medusa Schism, returned to take command of this combined force. Together they crusaded for the sake of honor and in defiance of the Dark Gods. Sicarius' first act was to deploy the desperate elements of the new crusade throughout the Medusa system to intercept and destroy the forces of chaos, and thwart Yegethmor's plan wherever they could. Sicarius knew that only the death of the evil sorcerer of chaos would end the threat to Medusa V, and he swore a mighty oath to the Emperor to hunt the Deceiver down and slay him in personal combat. Ultimately, the Space Marines fought for their honor, and the honor of the Imperium on Medusa V. Every victory they won, and every Imperial life they saved, helped to thwart Yegethmor's dark ritual. With Medusa V teetering on the brink of total annihilation, and the war among multiple combatants engulfing the mining world's surface, the Imperial Sector Command had dispatched an Imperial Guard crusade to ensure that the planet did not fall to the powers of darkness. The honor of leading the Medusa V crusade fell to one man, Lord Marshal Graf Herazon of the Vestroyan Firstborn Regiment. With well over 100 Guard regiments seconded to his direct command for the crusade, Lord Marshal Herazon had vowed to secure complete control of the planet and evacuate all of its remaining loyalist citizens in the name of the Emperor, no matter the cost. Fighting along Herazon's Vestroyans were scores of Imperial Guard regiments drawn from all across the Imperium of Man. Grim and sturdy Acadians manned trenches alongside savage Kanak headtakers. Stoic Valhallans rubbed shoulders with the tough and resourceful Catashans, while the Venton Heavy Infantry took up position alongside Talarn Desert Raiders and the Crocian Grenadiers. Though many of the regimental commanders had expressed disdain at having to serve under the Vestroyan Marshal, those who had bothered to learn something of the man, or had served alongside him before, held a far more favorable opinion. They knew that if the Imperial Guard was to triumph upon Medusa V, they needed a commander with his faith and dedication. As more Imperial Guard forces arrive, Herizon ordered them to take up defensive positions in designated strategic points around Medusa V. Herizon and his advisors had identified 9 key defensive positions on the world, including the hives Zethus and Imphion on the Articus Plateau, Diamios Spaceport, and the Dioscuri Observatory. In each location, one simple order was given to the troops. Not a single step would be taken in retreat. The Imperial Guard intended to deny Medusa V to the Emperor's myriad of enemies, or every man and woman among them would die in the effort. Every victory by the Imperial Guard ensured the safe evacuation of thousands of loyal Imperial citizens. And so, the battle lines have been drawn. Humanity stands on the precipice of a massive battle whose scale has not been seen before. Not because of how many will be fed to the fires of battle, but the number of players. Even the 13th Black Crusade could not boast so many different religions, creeds, races, and warriors in such a compact space. And so next week, we will discuss the outcome of this massive fray. Who will win? Will the Orc war boss, Nazdreg Ugdrum, be able to escape before the warp storm hits? Will Noake gather enough slaves to complete the coup on Kamarach? Or the Necrons slaughter enough people to build their shields strong enough to withstand the warp storm to come? Will humanity be able to hold back all the alien and chaos forces long enough for an evacuation? Or will the Tyranids from Hive Fleet Kraken consume all in their wake before moving on to the next world full of biomass? Well, tune in next week to find out. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this Vox. And if you did, please like, follow, comment, and subscribe. And if you really enjoy the show, feel free to join our membership program on our Spotify channel and YouTube channel called
Tales of Asharaka.
Have a great day. And as always,
until next time, this is Zeckthar, signing off.